lovies, this is lesson 83, part 1. We're talking about good sampling methods in this lesson. We're coming from talking about the bad sampling methods. So the sampling methods that just are a total dumpster fire. There are two very common ones, convenience sampling and voluntary response sampling. What's the issue with these? Well, they give us samples that don't represent the population. And that's where we started this unit. We had to get really clear on the fact that when we are looking into or investigating a variable of interest, we have to know our population, but then we have to make sure that our sample is representative of the population. So when you use a bad sampling method, you typically end up with a sample that does not represent the population. That is an issue because it often leads to bias, and bias cannot be fixed. Bias will give you a sample that typically overestimates or underestimates the value that you want to know. Often in stats, we begin by identifying the bad sampling methods so that it is even more clear why the next sampling methods are the good ones. And that's where we begin on page 807. There are three really good, really basic sampling methods. These are the basic sampling methods. We're going to talk about in lesson 84, we're going to start talking about more complex samples, but these ones are the good sampling methods, and they're basic. They're basic and easy. So, convenience sampling and voluntary response sampling suffer from bias due to personal choice. So, for a convenience sample, I am personally choosing to find people that are easy and convenient to reach. For a voluntary response sample, I am choosing to participate. So in either case, there's personal choice involved. The best way to avoid this problem is to let chance choose the sample. So take the personal, the human element out of it completely, make it objective, black and white, let chance choose your sample. So the most basic way to do this is your simple random sample, or your SRS. Now remember, every random sample is not necessarily an SRS. An SRS is a very specific type of random sample. We have talked about this before when we were doing sampling distribution, confidence intervals, because lots of you guys were saying this is an SRS when really it was just a random sample. So we have to make sure that we know an SRS is a very specific thing. Well, what is specific about it? Well, an SRS gives every possible sample of the desired size and equal chance of being chosen. It also gives each member of the population an equal chance to be included in the sample. So basically what this boils down to is I have the same chances of gathering a sample of size 10 as I do gathering a sample of size 20, and each of those sizes has the same probability of getting chosen. I probably didn't describe that excellently, but essentially every possible sample of the desired size has an equal chance of being chosen. So we talked about in our sampling method unit that a sampling distribution is every possible sample that you can take of size 5. A simple random sample ensures that the chances you will select a sample of size 5 is the same for every sample of size 5. It also makes sure that the people or the things in that sample have an equal chance of being chosen. So what that means is if I want to take a sample of 5 students, I want to make sure that every student has the same chance to be chosen. So I don't want it to be that like girls are more likely to be chosen than boys. We want it to be that they have the same chance of being chosen. This description here can be a little bit hard to wrap your mind around. So the biggest takeaway from a simple random sample is that you have to label. So we're down here. The basic idea is that you label the members of your population, you randomize, and then you select. So simple random sample is a specific thing. Why is it specific? Because it ensures an equal chance for your individuals to be chosen to be in the sample and for every sample of the same size to be chosen. Ultimately, though, when you describe random sampling, you want to make sure that you label the members of your population, you randomize how you choose them, and then you choose them or you select them. Hat method is the easiest way to choose an SRS of N people. So literally a top hat, like a container that you can put papers in and shakey, shakey, shake. So this is the easiest way, and this is how these bullet points are how you would describe selecting a sample using hat method. So step number 1, we write the names or numbers of our population on identical slips of paper. It is very important that you use the word identical. Identical slips of paper. They have to be same size, same weight, same color. Everything about them has to be the same. Then we put the slips in a hat. Do I really need to write that? Yes. If you describe hat method, you have to write every bullet point. You cannot leave a single bullet point out and still get full credit. Now this is arguably the most important step. Shake the hat. Shakey, shakey, shake. This is the randomize part of the process. So this is the label, randomize. Now we're going to select. We're going to pull out slips one at a time until you have N slips. Then stop. Do I really need to write then stop? Yes. The names and numbers on each of the papers you pulled out are your sample. So why do I have to write all of these really obvious things? The idea here is, and the AP board is very clear on this, you have to describe your sampling method so well, so clearly, so explicitly, that I could take your description and give it to one of Mr. Angel's Math 3 kids, and they could take the sample just by reading your instructions. Knowing nothing about statistics, they could carry out hat method. So it has to be that explicit. You do have to say, write the names on identical slips of paper. Put the papers in a hat. Shake the hat. Take the papers out one at a time until you have however many you need, then stop. The names and the numbers on the papers you pulled out are your sample. Family, you have to write every one of these. You cannot leave out anything from in this section and still get full credit. Please trust me on that. Please. So this is part of why I have left this unit until the very end, because I know it'll be on the test. I know what the AP readers want, and I know that our chances are very good at passing if we are super good at testing confidence intervals and describing how to take a sample. So remember, we have to be able to give this to some person who knows nothing about stats, and they could follow our instructions to choose a sample. Okay, let's do one quick example of HAT method. An environmental science teacher at a high school with 2,500 students wanted to estimate the proportion of students at the school who regularly recycle plastic bottles. The teacher selected a random sample of 60 students at the school to survey. Each selected student went into the teacher's office one at a time and was asked to respond yes or no to the following question. Do you regularly recycle plastic bottles? Describe how you would select a simple random sample of 60 students. So please notice on here that they are giving you sample size and specifically telling you to find an SRS. So they're saying you want to choose 60 students and you want it to be an SRS. Well, we're going to use the easiest method that there is. We're going to use HAT method. So these students are already labeled. They're labeled with their given name. So the label portion up here is done. Their parents labeled them. We're going to write the name. Of each student. And we could even be better and say each student, each of the 2,500. I think this is fine. Write the name of each student on identical slips of paper. We might have wanted to put here each student in the population. I really don't think that's necessary. Write the name of each student in the population on identical slips of paper. Put the slips in a hat. Shaky shake the hat. Pull slips out one at a time until you have 60 slips. Then all stop. Write the name of each student in the population on identical slips of paper. Put them in a hat. Shaky, shaky, shake. Pull out one at a time until you have 60, then stop. The students whose names are on the slips that you pull out are my sample. So HAT method is the easiest. Write the labels down on identical slips of paper, put them in a hat, shaky, shaky, shake, one at a time until you have N, stop. That is your sample. Easiest way. Okay? HAT method. It's my favorite method because it is the easiest way. So next up is lesson 83 part 2, where instead of using HAT method, because who's carrying around a top hat all the time? Who really wants to write down 2,500 students' names on slips of paper and put them in the hat? No one. So next up we talk about how to do this with technology. That's up next. Okay, love you guys.